perfect form, the imperfect verb form, really, I think, to expose the imperfections of life together. In other words, the imperfect registers the onslaught of time. This passage that I just read to you is not about one meal together. It's about all of their meals together. It's about the fate of having to eat your meal together with your husband. It's about the kind of sort of look that you get, the lucidity that comes with it, the way in which nothing can escape your gaze when night after night after night after night you sit next to the same person and watch him eat. Of course, eating is not the most attractive thing that we do. So there's something about Flaubert's gaze that is virtually clinical as he looks at this. And note the economy of this passage as well, that the boiled beef, the smoke of the boiled beef then becomes related to the secret, in her secret soul, the waves of nauseous disgust. In the discussion of Père Goriot, I mentioned at the beginning the relationship between Madame Vauquer, the landlady, and then the Maison Vauquer, the boarding house. Here we've got something that cuts deeper, it seems to me, that looking at her husband go through the routine motions of eating, it's sort of, there's a kind of inner nausea that is brought out here. And the time that it takes to eat, he's a slow eater. You watch her playing with these nuts, not knowing what to do. So we get a sense of the buildup of ennui, of boredom, the sort of gradual dissipation and loss, evaporation, disappearance of affection, which can't survive this routine. And that leads me to the point that I alluded to in my first comment, which is bliss and passion and things like that Emma has wanted. Are they compatible with time? Are they compatible with living together with someone? Is it the case, in fact, that time is the greatest enemy of ecstasy, which is a word that matters to Madame Bovary? Ecstasy, etymologically, means ecstasis, to be removed from the spot, to be so struck with passion and bliss as to be transported. And that's a word that the French use a lot, a transport. Well, I think we begin to see how corrosive and erosive time could be in arrangements of that sort, that marriage itself is really what's on the docket in this particular book. Well, Emma, you could argue, it's partly her own fault. I mean, what will happen if you start out in life with the conviction that bliss, passion, and ecstasy are going to be the norms, or at least going to be the dessert, the rewards, but predictable dessert and rewards? Well, after all, that's why you got married, is that this is what is coming to you. This is going to be the consummation of your desires. These terms, as I've already suggested, come to her. She didn't invent them. Come to her from the books that she read in the convent. And so one of the questions, and it's a severe question, it seems to me, that Flaubert is raising here, is, does life cheat us? Which is what I think our instinctive reaction would be. Life doesn't measure up. We made the wrong choice. But the more frightening alternative explanation is our vocabulary cheats us. Our words cheat us. Our concepts cheat us. That we have all of the wrong tools. She wonders, was this marriage a mistake? Could another man perhaps give her, provide her, the things that she has not found? As I said, it's a scary doctrine. You may recall that when I lectured on Bleak House, I talked about pollution. I talked about the fact that we are porous, that we are penetrable, that we are formed by discourses and values that are not of our own making. And I think Flaubert takes that even further. But Emma is stubborn. And she will not give up on desire. It's one of the most endearing features of her, it seems to me. The French actually have come up with the term Bovarisme. And Bovarisme means, in French, to project onto others, either people or places, your own desires and needs and fantasies. So Emma seeks in her reading, she finds it in her dreams, kinds of gratification that her life does not offer her. She wishes that there would be sighs by moonlight, long embraces, tearful embraces as well because of one's happiness. Frequently in her mind, because of what she's read, they would be connected with great castles and silken boudoirs. But she also buys a map of Paris because she reads about Parisian fashions. And on this map, she projects her own desires and her own fantasies, imagines herself walking through these elegant streets, going into these elegant Parisian boutiques. All of this is what Bovarisme is. Well, Flaubert can be very brutal in this book, not just in the theory, as I said, that perhaps we are constructed, but he can be brutal about his own characters. He tries not to be. He tries to let the story tell itself. But a phrase like this, when he talks about Emma, that she, he says, was incapable of understanding what she did not experience. It's an interesting line. Incapable of understanding what she did not experience or believing anything that did not take on a conventional form. That's the killer. So frequently he's going to make these jabs at her, telling us that she's deficient, she's got defective machinery here, her responses are wrong. And nonetheless, I say all of this because Flaubert told his friends that he hated writing this book, that he hated Emma Bovary, that he hated the subject matter that he chose, that he thought love was a vulgar, trite subject, that he didn't particularly believe in it. At the same time, he's well known for having said, Madame Bovary, c'est moi. Madame Bovary, that's me. Now you go ahead and try to sort that one out, because he's both of these people. As I said at the beginning, there's a warfare inside of him between the dreamer and the realist, between the person who wants ecstasy and bliss, and then the cynical, surgical fellow. And I say surgical because his father and his brother were physicians. He comes out of a medical background. All of these things fit together or sort of wrestle with each other in a very interesting way in this book. The book measures Emma's love life. It measures one of the titles of the title of one of his very great books. It's as great, I think, as Madame Bovary, is L'éducation sentimentale, sentimental education, and that's essentially what happens in this book. We watch the entire sort of curve of Emma's life as she tries to satisfy her needs and wants, and they may not be satisfiable. We've seen that it starts out badly with Charles Bovary as her husband, and he goes from mediocre to worse. And in particular, one of the most embarrassing episodes in his life is that he performs a botched surgery. There's a fellow in the town, the village they're in, Hippolyte, who has a club foot, and he gets along with this club foot. He sort of limps and bounces all over the place, not having any trouble. But Emma, not Charles, Emma says, well, now this is the opportunity for you to display your mettle as a doctor. After all, you've read the medical books. Go ahead and operate on him and make it possible for him to walk properly. Charles is a little bit worried this may not work. He goes back to the books. He reads everything he can about all the intricate kinds of tendons and muscles and nerves. He performs an operation. Everybody claps. The whole town is there. He puts poor Hippolyte's foot into a box afterwards. Everybody's convinced this is it. We've got a magical doctor here. And of course, it's a disaster. Gangrene sets in, and eventually the foot has to be amputated. And of course, this also amputates any chances that Charles might have in rising to some sort of position of esteem. And it's sort of the last straw, I think, for Emma to ever think that her husband could be worth much. Another episode in the same vein is when they go to this ball. They're invited to this, because they're not of high station, but they're invited to this ball at the Vaubyessard, which is an aristocratic family, because Charles had at one point attended the Marquis. And there too, she has a sense of what the beautiful life is like, what the beautiful people are like. These are wealthy people accustomed to privilege and pleasure, leading an elegant kind of life, and she never forgets this. Stays in her mind as what she can never have, a station to which she cannot rise. But these needs, as I said, are stubborn. They're going to be lifelong needs that she has to find romance. So the next candidate is this young law clerk, Léon, in the village that they move to next. He initially seems dreamy and as cliché-ridden as she is. And Flaubert writes about their encounter in a kind of remarkable way. And I'll read you a segment of it so you'll see what I mean. That we hear the two of them exchanging remarks about each other, taking each other's measure, and we hear what the love discourse of this book sounds like. I think there is nothing so beautiful as sunsets, but especially by the seashore. If you had to define a cliché, that would be it. Nothing so beautiful as sunsets, especially by the seashore. Léon doesn't miss a beat. Oh, I love the sea. And doesn't it